So, after all the hype and anticipation, I finally watched Weak Hero Class 2. And all I can say is weak. So weak. This is certainly one of the biggest letdowns of any series I've ever watched. I cannot overstate this. This season is so painfully mediocre. The unpleasant watching experience of this season was like opening a beautifully wrapped gift only to find half a Q-tip in there. Half of a used Q-tip.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
I shall now calmly and logically air out my grievances, which I have also written down. My first issue with this season is it suffers from what I would call look over hereism, where I feel the show treats me like a toddler, like it needs to constantly dangle something new and shiny in my face without any plausible explanation. This season is chock full of interesting ideas and premises, but the show seems to have absolutely zero interest in exploring them. There are so many instances where the show is like, hey, look over there, an interesting idea. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about it. And the show is like, no, fuck that. That is for good shows to do. Hey, look over there, another interesting idea.
I couldn't care less.
Here's a list of plot points that the show brings up, but does nothing with them. Baku. Shion, Baku, Juntae, and Hyuntak becoming close friends. Baku and Big-jin being former friends. The show dedicates all of a few minutes to explain all of the backstory of something that is such a central theme to this season. Baku's father. Suho going abroad. Big-jin as a character. I do not understand any of all this. All of these plot points are treated like summaries, like cliff notes of what they're supposed to be. And I'm like, where's the rest of the story?
Where's the fat? Where's the fat?
Characters just seem to do things because the makers said so. A good analogy for this is with the finale of Game of Thrones, where Daenerys sets King's Landing on fire. Now, is this a completely impossible thing for Daenerys to do? No. You just had to make sure that the current version of Daenerys that we know is built up to become the version of Daenerys who can set King's Landing on fire, meaning that there's a whole bunch of storytelling missing. It's the very same thing here. Now, I don't think that these plot points are not interesting. I think they are, but there's a whole lot of nuance, of character development, and of storytelling that's missing. I feel that when the makers were making this show, they looked at the source material, picked out what they considered the juicy bits, and then just smashed them together, without considering the fact that there was a lot of build-up that made those juicy bits juicy. You know what I mean? The villains this season are just not it. They're very weak. The tension of what are the villains going to do, which should keep our heroes on their toes, which in turn keeps we the audience at the edge of our seats, is just missing. Consider Cho Hyun-man the school bully. He does bad things, yes, but he's just not menacing. Compare him to the classroom bully from season 1. This guy is a rich, spoiled brat whose fragile ego can't handle the fact that Shion is doing better than him academically. So, he tries to bully Shion, but he's effectively swatted like a fly. Because of this, he desperately resorts to bigger and more underhanded tactics to defeat Shion, which gets him involved with shadier and shadier people, which means Shion has to defeat these shadier and shadier people. So as you progress in the series, the obstacles that Shion faces become bigger and bigger. So the writing so smartly and effectively uses one character to up the stakes. Cho Hyun-man just doesn't measure up. Now the next villain, Sung-jae, one of the few redeemable parts of this season, who brings such delicious, unhinged, unpredictable energy, isn't really given much to do. I wish he had a bigger part to play in the series because he was so fun to watch. Now, Nabbit Jin and the rest of his crew, useless. Aside from vaguely looking evil and menacing, what does he bring to the table? Seriously. I don't quite understand Baku as a character. Shion is basically a side character this season while Baku takes center stage, but the plot doesn't really do much with him either. Baku seems straight out of some kind of campy, zany, weird story. His character is quite quirky and peculiar. It's kind of like taking the mask character and plopping it in a weak hero story. The conflicting tones kind of give me whiplash. Now, matching these conflicting tones is not completely impossible, but the creatives behind the story would actually need to do some creative writing, which they seem to not want to do this season. So, yeah. A lot of people, myself included, kind of underestimated the amount of charm that Cho Hyun-wook gave to Suho's character in season 1. There was just this natural, effortless charm that Suho had that you just couldn't help but like him and root for him. You'd also understand why a character like this was able to break down Shiun's walls. Baku definitely has charm, but I just feel like his boisterous, larger-than-life energy needed to be dialed down a bit because he kind of ended up coming off as a caricature instead of a character. Also, Baku is basically a superhero now. No matter the circumstances of the fight he's in or the amount of people he's fighting, I am never concerned for him because of his magical fists of fury. Compare this to Suho in season 1, who, even though we know he's a really, really good fighter, we still fear for him when he goes into fights, especially if he's outnumbered, because he isn't fucking Thor or the Hulk. They got this shit right the first season. What happened this season? Which brings me to another point. The fights this season are so low stakes. The outcome of most of the fights are basically meaningless to me. I do not care for any of the characters, so their fights don't mean anything to me. They seem to fight for whatever reasons. Shion using the environment to his advantage as he did in season 1 is basically absent. And also, everyone seems to have graduated from the Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Bruce Lee school of fighting for some reason, so...
Sorry for the laugh.
Now in season 1, and yes, I will keep comparing it to season 1 because they got it so right the first time and I don't know what happened this time. In season 1, before any fight, there would be some established stakes, something hanging on the line, something that you wanted to see the outcome of. There'll be a build-up of tension before a fight, and that fight would be the release of all that built-up tension. But also, that fight will be part of the build-up for the next fight. Genius! To conclude, I have endured 8 episodes and feel no urge to finish it, unless someone convinces me that the rest of the episodes feature the second coming of Christ, all of the Greek gods, and somehow Aang from The Last Airbender. I will not be touching it with a 10-foot pole. I have no wish to waste any more of my life on this. This also applies if there's a third season. Thank you.